It really cannot be overstressed, the degree of oversell that Elon Musk has gone through to reinvent the tunnel. Yeah, just to reinvent the tunnel. Look, they got this video up on Twitter showing how amazing their tunnel is under the title, "What a Race?" 8,700 retweets, 49,000 likes, and 3.9 million views. Remember, initially it was all going to be futuristic-y. Cars were going to be taken into the ground by these smart, high-tech elevators.
And would it be incredible if you could travel around LA, New York, DC, Chicago, Paris, London, anywhere at 150 miles an hour? That'd be phenomenal.
They were going to land on fully autonomous skates that would automatically and effortlessly whisk people to their destinations.
Sort of like, almost like an autonomous underground multi-level car system.
Yeah. They cost $1.
That costs $1, yeah, exactly.
It's going to be hundreds of times cheaper and faster than those poor misguided Neanderthals traveling on the surface.
Well, it looks pretty cool. And who wouldn't want to blast past the LA traffic at 150 miles an hour?
Look, it's all so easy in this computer-generated animation. Oh, sorry, not that one. This computer-generated animation. Well, they dug their tunnel and they claimed it was 100 times cheaper to dig than other tunnels that had been dug.
The tunnels cost, like I said, up to $1 billion. So like a discount tunnel would be sort of $200 million. But we're able to build this tunnel for about $10 million. So...
Until you looked at the numbers and no, it was almost exactly the same price as other tunnels that had been dug. So let's take a look at average tunneling cost. Well, blow me, Elon Musk's revolutionary tunnel is comparable to the average cost of digging a tunnel. Yeah, so much for making tunneling 100 times more efficient. Wow, let the revolution begin.
But the thing about going 3D is that you could have like you could have 16 tunnels going in the same direction. So you can have as many tunnels as you want.
Well, turns out they couldn't really get the skate things to work either, so they went for little guide rails on the wheels, which of course made this very little more than a very, very crudely constructed light rail. And a rather bumpy one too.
Would go like this on the side, and you'd be riding and be like, whoa, and everybody kind of like went, whoa, in the car. I don't know if it's like...
Now they've revolutionized this design again by paving it to make it a regular car tunnel. I kid you not, they have literally reinvented the car tunnel. But even more amazing than that is Elon Musk's justification for why they weren't using these futuristic-y high-tech skates. Well, Elon Musk has a simple reason why tunnels are better than the loop. This is simple and just works. You literally cannot make this stuff up. I mean, let's go all the way back. Remember, it started out as the hyperloop.
There's companies that are trying to create the hyperloop, and honestly, I think it's a lot easier than people think.
Which was going to transport people at 600 to 700 miles per hour in a vacuum tube.
We'll take a look at the hyperloop, the brand new method of transport brought forth by the entrepreneur and billionaire Elon Musk. The system is proposed to travel at an average speed of 900 kilometers an hour and at a top speed of 1,220 kilometers an hour. It's also a lot faster. You can basically get from downtown LA to downtown San Francisco in 30 minutes. It's also extremely energy efficient due to solar power utilization. In fact, the Hyperloop could generate more power than it consumes as a closed system.
Because you generate more power than you would consume in the system.
It's also much cheaper to build. It's about 1/10 the cost of the proposed California high-speed railway system. This means that tickets could cost as little as $25.
The blueprints are pretty complicated.
Well, blueprints are always kind of complicated.
Actually, no, there never were any blueprints. This was made back in 2015. And years later, All that had materialized was a rusty tube and a competition for college students to make their own soapbox derby hyperloop, none of which worked particularly well.
So we thought a great way for kind of the world to innovate would be to throw a student competition where we built a test track, a hyperloop test track, and then invited student teams from around the world to build the best possible pod to go in that test track.
No. They had a design competition for students.
Hyperloop, the technology is pretty much there already. We just have to implement it. One of the things this competition is for is to show the world that we can do this and convince them that we should build it somewhere and get the ball rolling.
So only 3 capsules actually went into the vacuum chamber. There was the roomy traveling comfort war design. There was the slightly bigger, but not much, Delft design. Then there was the absolutely tiny MIT entry. And only one of those made it to the end of the track. I entrusted the future of mankind's transport to students, and this is what they came up with. How could this possibly have happened? In fact, it's worse than that. You see, these vehicles are actually pushed up to speed by an electric vehicle. And then they're pushed about 1/4 of the distance, which means the MIT pod here, which was selected from one team out of about 1,200.
Of the original 1,200 teams that entered the competition, 120 made it to College Station, Texas. By the end of that weekend, there were 30 teams left, and we were fortunate enough to be one of those teams.
The absolute cream of the crop.
Up top here, inside, you see we have the seat where the dummy goes.
And it's to travel about 50 meters or something.
Now it's about to kick off. Remember, the SpaceX pusher will bring it up to speed, then it will detach and let Hyperloop MIT do its thing.
Okay, you ready for this? So the pusher is going. It's accelerating the pod. The pod's getting faster and faster, 30 kilometers an hour, 40 kilometers an hour, 50, and so forth, up to 60, 70, and it's released the pod, and the pod stopped. After going maybe, I don't know, 50 meters or something.
Elon Musk decided to host a competition. He told the world, come up with Hyperloop designs and let the best design win.
Indeed, the winning team actually only managed to go slightly further on its own. So here we go, the pusher's off and it's accelerating the pod. 30 kilometers an hour, 50 kilometers, 60, 70, wow, it's a record 80 kilometers an hour, 90 kilometers per hour, and it releases the pod and the pod stops.
One of the things this competition is for is to show the world that we can do this and convince them that we should build it somewhere and get the ball rolling.
Well, blueprints are always kind of complicated, and I mean, yes, there's math, but it's really not that hard.
It still sounds pretty complicated, Elon.
It's like a tube with an air hockey table.
Really, it's so simple, yet oddly enough, you couldn't even make one of those. I mean, the whole thing's got this Theranos feel to it. You know, the initial patterns were, you were just going to wear this tiny little chip and it was going to sample your blood and analyze it and send those results to a Wi-Fi server, which would then diagnose what was wrong with you and tell the chip which drugs to inject you with, and boom, you're instantly healthy. And that brilliant idea, which no one had ever thought of before, was thought up by a 19-year-old with no significant biological, chemical, or engineering training, who would then go on to become the fastest self-made female billionaire in history. Only to become the fastest self-made billionaire in history to lose all of their money. And if she's very lucky, she won't end up spending years in jail for it. So the progression here has been phenomenal. You know, it's the 21st century. Why are we using these old, obsolete things like tunnels and roads? We need a futuristic-y transport solution like the hyperloop.
Hyperloop. Hyperloop.
Hyperloop.
Hyperloop. Hyperloop.
Hyperloop.
Hyperloop.
Hyperloop. Thinking like maybe I should patent it and then offer to open source the patent to anyone that can make a credible case that they could actually do it. So I'm sort of debating it, but it would be for a fifth mode of transport. And I have a name for it, which is called the Hyperloop.
The Hyperloop?
Hyperloop, yeah.
Yeah, all we need is hundreds of miles of nearly impossible to construct, ludicrously expensive vacuum chamber. And pray tell, how far has the Hyperloop come in half a decade? Well, it's now a rusty tube outside of his headquarters, where the apex of Hyperloop design turned out to be...
We're using our onboard propulsion system. It's a wheel pressed to the rail.
Basically, it's a very small electric car, but it's still one.
No, wait. That's a little hard to do. Let's just ditch the idea of the vacuum and just go for digging a tunnel and run futuristic pods through them. You know, like a subway, but less efficient.
Elon Musk is greeted like a rock star as he emerges from a Tesla in his test tunnel in Hawthorne.
Hey, David. Well, Elon Musk saying he thinks he's cracked the code for a better commute, and all of this hinges on this tunnel that he dug under Hawthorne, California.
Musk unveiling the company's first prototype of a high-speed tunnel.
We were not allowed to record our ride inside the tunnel. Overall, it was a bit bumpy, but technically everything went smoothly.
Oh, sorry, that's too complicated too. Why don't we just drive through tunnels? You know, because it's simple and it works. This is the genius billionaire who people seem to have almost limitless belief in. He's going to make rocket flights as cheap as air tickets. And Elon Musk's estimate? He's going to do it for the price of a regular economy flight. He's going to put people on Mars in less than a decade.
So then in 2024, we want to try to fly 4 ships, two cargo and two crew. Then build up the base, starting obviously with one ship, then multiple ships, then start building out the city.
Even though he can't currently put men into orbit, and he's over 4 years late in being able to put men merely into orbit, something that NASA managed to do over 50 years ago.
Then making the city bigger, even bigger.
Yeah, if only going to Mars was as simple as generating some little computer-generated pictures of people on Mars. I mean, it's not just that he's 4 years late in merely putting men into orbit. Yeah, currently, not only can Elon Musk not put a man into space, this is what the emergency abort system looks like when you fire it up on a reused Dragon capsule.
Oh, no.
Oh, and he's going to make supersonic vertical takeoff and landing electric jets.
I have a design in mind for a vertical takeoff and landing supersonic electric jet.
The ideal long-distance transportation mechanism is a supersonic vertical takeoff and landing electric jet.
Hell, at this point, I'm surprised he doesn't just go all in, that he's going to invent the medical patch that you wear and automatically senses what's wrong with you and injects you with the right things to cure you. Seriously, he invents the tunnel and people cheer his every move. He even has this video up showing how effective Elon Musk's hypertunnel is. Well, look, I mean, he whisks through his tunnel whilst the other guy has to sit in traffic for about a minute. The bottom line being that at rush hour, when you have a dedicated tunnel, you can get to your destination in about 1 minute 30 seconds. Whilst if you have to get stuck in the surface traffic, it takes about 4 minutes 30 seconds. But wait a second, let's just think about that for a second. Let's consider the mass flow here. Let's race 100 cars through these two routes and compare the journey times. Elon Musk whisks people from point A to point B with a maximum speed of 100 and something miles per hour and a journey time of 1 minute 30 seconds. But what's the minimum time until the next one can arrive? Well, the rate limiting step is how quickly you can get people into the tunnel. So the elevator takes 20 seconds to go down and obviously 20 seconds to go back up again. So that's a minimum time till you can get the next car into the tunnel of about 40 seconds. So if we're going to race 100 cars through here, the first one arrives in 1 minute 30 seconds, and then after that, one car arrives every 40 seconds. So just to get 100 cars through here, it's going to be the original 90 seconds and 100 times by 40. So that's 4,090 seconds in total. Now let's compare that to the road. Well, with the road, it takes about 4 minutes 30 seconds to get the first car there. but cars on roads can quite happily travel within a couple of seconds of each other. But let's make it 4 seconds just to make it a little more competitive. So here, the total transit time for 100 cars is going to be the initial 4 minutes 30 seconds. That's 270 seconds. Then a car is going to arrive every 4 seconds after that. So 100 cars, 400 seconds, plus the original 270 seconds. To transport 100 cars via the road will take about 670 seconds, which means, stunningly, the road is almost 10 times quicker as a form of transporting people from point A to point B rather than Elon Musk's hyper elevator tunnel. Or, of course, we could just put a light rail in where 100 people can get on all in one go, which means they get to the destination in about the same time, in about 270 seconds, which means it's more than 10 times more efficient at moving people than this hyper tunnel. You know, I just can't understand why no one's invented the tram. Sorry, the hyper tram before. What kills you with the hypertunnel as an effective mode of transport is the rate-limiting step of getting a car into it every 40 seconds at best. I mean, just think about that for a second. It would be like building a road where you can only get a car going down the road every minute or so, at best. I mean, for most urban standards, that would count as a very, very quiet street. But I can tell you exactly what Elon Musk's brilliant new invention will be. The elevators are slowing things down too much. What we need is a tunnel that people can just drive into. You know, a sort of hyper slipway. You know, kind of like a normal tunnel, but hyper. And when people ask him, but what happened to the elevators? He'll say, this is just simple and it works. I mean, even more dumb. Just think about this for a second. Let's assume Elon Musk can achieve his goals of building hundreds of tunnels that allow cars to get into the middle of cities by the hundreds of thousands. Now what?
It's not going to look like a little discrete one-lane ramp. It's going to be a heavy-duty thing that needs to dump 1,500 cars an hour onto local streets, so it'll need to fan out into multiple turn lanes and probably involve a signalized intersection. This bridge moves 2,880 vehicles westbound during the peak of the morning rush hour. The infrastructure to move cars off the bridge takes up a full 2 3/4 blocks around Franklin Square, all of which were previously occupied by buildings. There are multiple bridges and ramps and signalized intersections which bring these cars onto surface streets, and yet it still backs up during the morning rush hour. And this is because no matter how much heavy highway infrastructure you build, it doesn't change the dimensions of the streets you're emptying the cars onto.
All you're going to do is get massive traffic jams at the entry and exit points to the tunnel, which makes the whole thing kind of pointless. Or where you're going to park the cars. If you've got nowhere to park the cars, you're just going to clutter up the city with more cars. I know, Elon Musk will soon invent the giant underground car park called the Hyper Park, and it'll have some futuristic computer graphics to go with it. Hell, at this point, why just have your roads and your car parks underground? Why not just live underground as well? I mean, why should we limit ourselves to merely living on the surface? We could live on many levels, 10, 20, 30 levels deep.
These train things, that's magnetic levitation, right?
Obviously.
Obviously, but I've never seen it this efficient.
So we gotta make a new life where they'll never find us. You know where? Underground. We can build houses and everything. Start again from scratch. Build shops and hospitals and barracks right under their noses, right under their feet. Everything we need. Banks, prisons and schools. We'll even build a railway and tunnel to the coast. Go there for our holidays. Nothing can stop men like us.
In the cellar was a tunnel scarcely 10 yards long that had taken him a week to dig. And I suddenly had my first inkling of the gulf between his dreams and his powers.
Sort of like, it's almost like an autonomous underground multi-level car system.
Yeah. They cost $1.
That costs $1, yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's try something a little more positive. For most of the last week, I've been shooting video of the sun and getting progressively better at it, leading to this moment that genuinely stunned me. Now, bear in mind, I've been an astronomer for getting on for 40 years. This is something that I never thought you would be able to see over the period of just a few hours. That is actually the sun rotating. Now, the sun rotates about once a month, give or take, but I never thought you'd be able to see it over, it's about 4 hours this time lapse. So you can check out my progression from noob to getting this sort of quality of video on the VoiceOfThunder channel, and I'll leave the links below. Now, this kit, it should be said, is crazy expensive, and there was an insane amount of work in making this mere 3 seconds of video. But if you want to get into astronomy and support this channel at the same time, I've got an Amazon store with links to a range of telescopes suitable for all venues below. So give it a thumbs up if you think it's awesome. And if, like me, you're just going, whoa, and you've not done it yet, why not subscribe and hit the notification bell to both this channel and the VoiceOfThunder channel. And as ever, if you really like this channel and want to support what I'm doing here, you can do it directly through Patreon, and I'll leave the links below.